The smell of fear permeated the recycled air of New Poland's subterranean robotics lab. Donovan Lancaster, his lanky frame hunched over a workbench, soldered the final connections on a palm-sized drone. His eyes, prematurely aged by the weight of oppression, darted nervously to the reinforced doors. "They're getting closer," whispered Anya, a prodigy whose 14 years belied her expertise in neural network architecture. "The People's Republic doesn't siege planets for show." Donovan nodded grimly, his mind racing through calculations of power consumption and swarm dynamics. Around him, dozens of adolescents worked with feverish intensity, their hands building what their hearts desperately hoped would be salvation. The distant rumble of orbital bombardment punctuated the air, a stark reminder of the dwindling time they had left. New Poland, once a thriving colony world known for its vast wheat fields and cutting-edge robotics industry, now found itself strangled by the iron grip of the People's Republic of Free Worlds. Irony dripped from every syllable of the Republic's name. Freedom was a luxury long since stripped from the citizens of New Poland, along with dignity, privacy, and hope. The siege had begun 3 standard months ago, ostensibly in response to whispers of rebellion, whispers that had been nothing more than the fevered paranoia of the Republic's ever-watchful bureaucrats. Donovan allowed himself a moment of bitter reflection. He thought of his father, disappeared 3 years ago for the crime of teaching pre-Republic history. Of his mother, worn to a husk by mandatory factory shifts and the gnawing uncertainty of survival. Of the neighbors who vanished in the night, their names scrubbed from public records as if they had never existed. "We never wanted rebellion," he murmured, more to himself than to his comrades. "But they've left us no choice." The robotics lab, once a shining example of the Republic's technological progress, now served as the beating heart of resistance. Each servo and circuit board was a quiet act of defiance against the collectivist machine that sought to crush their world. Anya's voice cut through Donovan's reverie. "The latest intel just came in. They've started rounding up anyone with ties to the old government. It's only a matter of time before they come for us." Donovan's jaw clenched. The Republic's tactics were as predictable as they were brutal. First, isolate the planet. Then, systematically eliminate any potential leaders or organizers. Finally, reduce the population to a quivering mass of compliance through a combination of propaganda, starvation, and raw terror. But they had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated the resourcefulness of New Poland's youth, the very generation they had sought to indoctrinate. Donovan stood, addressing the assembled team with a voice that belied his 18 years. "Listen up, everyone. We've talked about this moment, planned for it, hoped it would never come. But here we are." Faces turned towards him, a sea of determination mingled with fear. The youngest, barely 12, struggled to hold back tears as she calibrated her control interface. "They think they have us cornered," Donovan continued, steel entering his tone. "They expect us to cower, to break, to beg for mercy. But that's not who we are. We are the children of New Poland, heirs to a legacy of innovation and resilience." He gestured to the rows of drones lining the laboratory walls. "These are more than just machines. They're our voice, our defiance, our declaration that we will not go quietly into the night." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Donovan saw sparks of hope ignite in eyes that had known only fear for too long. "The plan remains the same. We build, we adapt, we prepare. And when the moment is right, we'll show the People's Republic that their precious collective is no match for the ingenuity of free minds." As if in response to his words, the room shuddered from a particularly close impact. Dust rained from the ceiling, coating workstations and huddled figures alike. Donovan locked eyes with Anya, a silent communication passing between them. They both knew the odds they faced, the terrible price of failure. But in that moment, surrounded by the quiet determination of their peers, a fragile hope began to bloom. The gathering storm of rebellion was building, fed by the very oppression meant to quash it. And at its eye, a group of children armed with soldering irons and circuits prepared to challenge an empire. Donovan turned back to his workbench, fingers flying over delicate components. The drone beneath his hands hummed to life, its lead eyes glowing an eerie blue. In that soft luminescence, He saw the first glimmer of a future where New Poland, and perhaps even worlds beyond, might breathe free once more. The siege of New Poland had begun as a mere footnote in the People's Republic's grand agenda of subjugation. Soon, it would become the first chapter in a very different story. Weeks bled into a blur of sleepless nights and caffeine-fueled engineering marathons. The People's Republic's blockade tightened like a noose, choking off supplies and hope in equal measure. But in the depths of New Poland's bunkers, a different kind of swarm was taking shape. Donovan Lancaster's fingers flew across a holographic interface, fine-tuning the swarm algorithms that would guide thousands of drones in concert. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, a testament to endless hours of work. Around him, the cavernous underground hangar thrummed with frenetic energy. Power consumption still too high on the Mark EI as Anya called out, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. She gestured to a cluster of drones, each no larger than a dinner plate. We need to squeeze at least another hour of flight time out of them. Donovan nodded, already pulling up schematics. What if we reconfigure the power cells? Sacrifice a bit of speed for longevity. As they debated solutions, Donovan couldn't help but marvel at the transformation of his team. Children forced to become soldiers, yes, but also innovators pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The youngest members, some barely into their teens, now spoke casually of swarm dynamics and electronic warfare. The drones lining the hangar walls were a testament to their ingenuity. Some bristled with makeshift weaponry, mining lasers repurposed into cutting beams, industrial welders converted to short-range plasma casters. Others were purely defensive, equipped with advanced jamming tech salvaged from New Poland's now silent communications arrays. But it was the infiltrators that Donovan was most proud of. Sleek, silent, and nearly undetectable, these drones carried the true payload of their rebellion, not explosives, but information. Data spikes loaded with evidence of the Republic's atrocities, encryption keys to breach their networks, and messages of hope for other subjugated worlds. A commotion near the main blast doors drew Donovan's attention. Mira, their youngest member at 12, was arguing with one of the few adult rebels who provided logistical support. "What's going on?" Donovan asked, approaching the pair. The man, a former dock worker named Henrik, looked grim. "Another raid topside. They're going block by block now, relocating anyone with technical skills." Mira's eyes blazed with a fury no child should know. "They took my parents, said engineers were needed for vital war production off-world." The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. Relocation was often a one-way trip to labor camps on barely habitable worlds, where dissenters worked themselves to death in service of the Republic's war machine. Donovan placed a hand on Mira's shoulder, feeling her tremble with rage and fear. "We'll get them back," he said, infusing his voice with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "All of them. That's a promise." Turning to the assembled team, Donovan raised his voice. "This is why we fight. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone the Republic has torn from their homes, their families, their very lives." He gestured to the swarm of drones surrounding them. "Each of these is more than just a machine. It's a chance to break the siege, to show the galaxy that the so-called People's Republic isn't invincible, that free will and creativity can triumph over their lockstep conformity." As he spoke, Donovan moved towards the largest drone in the hangar, a cobbled-together monstrosity that dwarfed its brethren. This would be his ship, his spear aimed at the heart of the People's Republic's fleet. "Tonight we fly," he declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the underground base. "Not for glory, not for vengeance, but for the simple right to exist without the boot of tyranny on our necks." A chorus of cheers erupted, quickly muffled lest the sound carry to the surface. As the teams took their positions, running final checks on their drones and control interfaces, Donovan felt a presence at his side. Anya stood there, her usual cool composure cracking to reveal a mix of fear and determination. "You know the odds," she said quietly. "Even if we break the blockade, the Republic won't just let us go." Donovan nodded, allowing himself a grim smile. "True. But we're not fighting to be left alone, Anya. This is just the first strike." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You're thinking bigger than New Poland, aren't you?" "Someone has to," Donovan replied. If we can do this, if we can show that a bunch of kids with cobbled-together tech can bloody the Republic's nose, imagine what it could inspire across the galaxy." Anya's response was cut short by a distant rumble that shook dust from the ceiling. The orbital bombardment was intensifying, a sure sign that the Republic was growing impatient with the planet's continued resistance. "Looks like they're forcing our hand," Donovan said, climbing into the cockpit of his oversized drone. Neural interface tendrils snaked out, linking his consciousness directly to the machine. As the massive hangar doors began to grind open, revealing a night sky painted with the fire of falling debris, Donovan's voice crackled over the team's comm system. "Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And most importantly, remember that every drone, every data packet, every act of defiance chips away at the foundations of their power." The launch countdown began, each second a heartbeat of terrified anticipation. Donovan felt the fear in his own chest, a cold knot that threatened to paralyze him. But alongside it burned something stronger, a fierce, unyielding hope. As the counter hit zero and the first wave of drones screamed into the war-torn sky, that hope blazed into certainty. They had been forged in the crucible of oppression, tempered by loss and hardship. And now, the swarm was rising. The siege of New Poland was about to become a revolution. The night sky of New Poland erupted into a storm of metal and light. Thousands of drones, piloted by steady hands in underground bunkers, streaked toward the orbiting blockade. The People's Republic's response was predictably brutal waves of interceptor fire painting space with actinic flares. Donovan, his consciousness partially melded with his oversized craft through a jerry-rigged neural link, felt every near miss as a tingle along his skin. The sensation was disorienting, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. "Epsilon Squad, watch your left flank," he barked into the comm, guiding a cluster of smaller drones to provide cover fire. "Anya, how's our ECM holding up?" Her voice came back strained but steady, jamming at 80% effectiveness. "Their targeting systems are struggling, but it won't last forever." As if to punctuate her words, a Republic cruiser unleashed a barrage of missiles. Donovan watched in horror as a dozen drones winked out of existence, their pilots' anguished cries filling the command center. But for every drone destroyed, 3 more darted through the gaps. The swarm tactics were working, overwhelming the rigid command structure of the Republic's fleet. Donovan allowed himself a savage grin as the first supply ships from the rebel worlds slipped past the fracturing blockade. "We're punching through," Anya's voice crackled over the comm, triumphant despite the chaos. "The destroyers on the port flank are pulling back." Donovan's elation was short-lived. Looming before him on the massive holographic display was the Leviathan form of the flagship Collective Will, a city-sized monument to authoritarian might. Its gleaming bridge module, visible even at this distance, represented the brain of the entire invasion force. A glass jaw, Donovan thought, on an iron giant. He opened a channel to all teams. "This is it. Give me everything you've got, every scrap of thrust, every ounce of distraction. Collective Will goes down, and this blockade crumbles." As one, the swarm converged. Smaller drones sacrificed themselves in kamikaze runs against weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Others latched onto hull plates, boring through with improvised plasma cutters. Donovan's craft, its armor plating glowing cherry red from absorbed impacts on the video feed, barreled toward the bridge. Klaxons blared through the neural link as system after system failed. "Not yet," he willed the battered machine. "Not when we're so close." Through the chaos of battle, a familiar voice cut through on a private channel. Donovan, it was Mira, the youngest of their group. "I've breached their network. Uploading our data package now." A fierce pride swelled in Donovan's chest. Even as they fought with improvised weapons, their true victory was unfolding in the electronic realm. Proof of the Republic's atrocities, tactical data, and messages of rebellion were now flooding through the Collective Will systems, spreading to every connected ship in the fleet. The bridge loomed larger on the display, a cathedral of arrogance and control. In his mind's eye, Donovan saw the panicked faces of Republic officers as their systems turned against them, as the truth of their regime's brutality played on every screen. "This is for New Poland," Donovan whispered. "For every world you've crushed, every life you've stolen." His drone, now more a missile than a craft, streaked towards its target. Donovan's hands tightened on the control yoke, his entire body tense as he guided the drone on its final approach. The impact was spectacular. On the main screen, Donovan watched as his drone smashed into the collective will's bridge in a brilliant explosion of light and debris. The neural link went dead, leaving him momentarily disoriented as his consciousness snapped fully back to his own body. For a moment, silence reigned in the command center. Then, a chorus of cheers erupted as the collective will began to list, its command structure literally and figuratively decapitated. Anya's voice, thick with emotion, cut through the celebration. Multiple ships are powering down weapons. We're receiving surrender signals. Donovan leaned back in his chair, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration washing over him. They had done it. Against all odds, a group of kids with cobbled-together technology had brought a galactic superpower to its knees. As the realization of their victory sank in, reports began flooding the command center. The blockade was breaking up, with many Republic ships either surrendering or fleeing. Relief ships, long held at bay, were beginning their approach to New Poland. But amid the jubilation, Donovan felt a pang of sorrow. The screens around him displayed the cost of their victory, the wrecked hulls of countless drones, each representing a young pilot who had risked everything for freedom. "Anya," he called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "What's the status of our teams?" Her face, visible on a nearby screen, was a mixture of joy and grief. We lost about 30% of our pilots, Donovan. But the others, they're alive. They're coming home." Donovan nodded solemnly. The price had been high, but they had achieved what many thought impossible. And more importantly, they had lit a spark of hope that would spread far beyond New Poland. As if reading his thoughts, Mira's excited voice came over the comm. "Donovan, the data package is spreading faster than we could have imagined. We're getting signals from other worlds. They're rising up." A new wave of cheers swept through the command center. Donovan stood, surveying the room filled with young faces now aged beyond their years by the crucible of war. Yet in their eyes he saw not just exhaustion, but a burning determination. They had won their first battle, but the war was far from over. The Republic would regroup, would seek to crush this rebellion with even greater brutality. But when they returned, they would find more than just New Poland waiting for them. They would face a galaxy awakening to the power of individual spirit, of creativity unleashed, of hope reborn. Dawn broke over New Poland's capital city, the first rays of sunlight unobstructed by the looming shapes of Republic warships for the first time in months. Donovan Lancaster stood atop the underground bunker, his eyes scanning the horizon where contrails of incoming relief ships crisscrossed the sky. The victory they'd achieved mere hours ago still felt surreal. The fall of the collective will, the breaking of the blockade, the wave of rebellion spreading across the sector, it was almost too much to process. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Anya's voice came from behind him. She looked exhausted but triumphant, a datapad clutched in her hand. "Latest reports are in. The Republic's fleet is in full retreat across 3 sectors." Donovan nodded, a mix of emotions churning in his chest. "And our losses?" Anya's expression sobered. "Final count stands at 28% of our drone pilots, another 15% injured. We lost Thomas and Kira." The names hit Donovan like physical blows. Thomas, barely 15, had been a prodigy with swarm algorithms. Kira, their best electronic warfare specialist, had just celebrated her 17th birthday last week. Now they were gone, along with too many others. They knew the risks, Donovan said softly, more to himself than to Anya. "We all did." As they stood in silence, the city below began to stir to life. People emerged from shelters, blinking in the sunlight, their faces a mix of disbelief and hope. Some wept openly, others embraced strangers in the street. The sound of celebrations began to drift upwards. "They're calling you a hero, you know," Anya said, gesturing to her datapad. "You and all of us. The kids who saved a world." Donovan frowned. "We're not heroes. We just did what had to be done." Before Anya could respond, the bunker's comm system crackled to life. Mira's excited voice filled the air. "Donovan, Anya, you need to see this. The data package we uploaded, it's gone viral across the nets. Worlds we've never even heard of are rising up." They rushed back into the command center, now a hive of activity as their young team coordinated with incoming relief efforts. The main screen displayed a galaxy map, pinpoints of light representing planets where the Republic's hold was being challenged. "It's not just military targets," Mira explained, her fingers flying over a console. "People are using our encryption protocols to secure their communications, sharing our tactics. The Republic's trying to suppress it, but they can't keep up." Donovan felt a surge of pride mixed with apprehension. They had hoped to inspire resistance, but the speed and scale of it were beyond anything they had imagined. A new alert flashed on the screen, an incoming transmission from one of the relief ships. The face that appeared was weathered and scarred, belonging to a man Donovan recognized from Resistance briefings: Admiral Teton, one of the most wanted rebels in the sector. "This is Admiral Teton of the Free Worlds Alliance," the man said, his voice gruff but tinged with respect. "I'm speaking to Donovan Lancaster and his team. What you've accomplished here, it's nothing short of miraculous. But I need you to listen carefully. You've struck a blow against the Republic, but they will return. And when they do, they'll come with everything they have." The Admiral's words cast a somber pall over the room. The celebration outside seemed suddenly distant, muted. "So what do we do?" Anya asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Admiral Teton's expression was grim but determined. "We prepare. What you've started here on New Poland, it needs to spread. The Republic's strength has always been in its uniformity, its ability to crush individuality. You've proven that creativity, that the spirit of free will, can overcome their brute force. We need to build on that." Donovan nodded slowly, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Our drones, our tactics, they can be adapted, improved. And the data we've uncovered about the Republic's atrocities." "Exactly," Teton said. "You've given us a foothold, a chance to turn this into a true galactic revolution. But it won't be easy, and it won't be quick. Are you prepared for what comes next?" Donovan looked around the room, meeting the eyes of his team. He saw fear there, yes, but also determination. They had tasted freedom, had proven to themselves and the galaxy that they were capable of extraordinary things. There was no going back. "We're ready," Donovan said, his voice steady. "Whatever it takes." As the transmission ended, Donovan turned to address his team. The children who had become warriors, the students who had outwitted an empire. "What we've done here is just the beginning," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "We've shown the galaxy that the Republic isn't invincible, that when free minds work together we can accomplish the impossible. But our fight is far from over." He gestured to the galaxy map, still alight with pinpricks of rebellion. "Out there are billions of people still living under the Republic's boot. People who now dare to hope because of what we've done here. We owe it to them, to ourselves, and to those we've lost, to see this through." A chorus of agreement rose from the assembled team. Donovan felt a swell of emotion in his chest: pride, fear, determination, all mixed together. As the room erupted into a flurry of activity plans being made, resources allocated, messages dispatched to nascent resistance cells, Donovan allowed himself one last look at the dawning sky of New Poland. The siege was broken, but a greater challenge lay ahead. The sparks of rebellion they had ignited would need to be fanned into a galactic inferno. It would be dangerous, brutal, and there was no guarantee of success. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.